Mentor relationships come in many different forms: parent to offspring, sibling to sibling, teacher to student, senior to junior colleagues, and even friend to friend. Since these different forms can all fall under the same umbrella, these concepts can be applied almost universally. Mentors should be aware of their students' goals, cater the lessons to those goals, motivate and guide the student to and beyond those goals, only taking over when absolutely necessary, and above all else, understand that the purpose of teaching is to advance the next generation to a level beyond the current state of an art or science. This is almost the exact opposite to what we saw demonstrated by Applejack, Rarity, and Rainbow Dash in the cart before the ponies. And just like we saw in the episode, this is something you'll likely run into at least once in your life and comes in a few different forms. Adhering to tradition too strictly, like Applejack did, happens when tradition is the only thing that they ever knew. They have no outside perspective and so believe that the traditional methods are the best. They see no reason to risk changing, lest doing so is an attempt to fix what isn't broken. Attempting to relive a victory from your past, like Rainbow Dash did, usually happens when a mentor was very talented in the subject themselves. Thus they have trouble stepping back when an opportunity to get back in the saddle presents itself. On the other side of that same coin is trying to correct a failure from your past, like Rarity did. This usually happens as a means to rebuild their own self-confidence by overcompensating through their charge. But all of these things are detrimental to students and teachers alike. Being strictly traditional may create gaps in a student's understanding and limit their ability to improve. Or they may grow to see the tradition as hollow and abandon it entirely, thus losing any practical or theoretical benefit that the tradition may have had it been taught correctly. Just as likely, a teacher may end up closing their minds and forgetting what they should have already known. Thus, when the tradition is questioned, their explanations can only be insufficient, or they will resort to anger from feeling criticized on a personal level. Attempting to relive a past glory makes a student's experience about your competitive nature, causing them to suffer from a lack of positive reinforcement and understanding their role in their performance. This often leads to the student quitting out of frustration or adopting the same attitude as their selfish mentor, causing them to seek fulfillment through victory alone and lashing out at themselves and others when they fall short. Similarly, overcompensating for a past failure carries the same consequences, with the addition of embarrassing yourself in the same way that Spike did during the Equestria Games. Employing tradition like Applejack should be used to show the history of an art or science. This way, a student can understand exactly how they arrived to where they are now, why things have changed, and more importantly, why they've stayed the same long enough to become tradition, and perhaps even figure out how to take the next step. Craving to relive success in a competitive context like Rainbow Dash should be about the positive reinforcement of the student to measure their progress, strengths, weaknesses, and efforts to find room for improvements. In other words, in order to gain this victory, you must first realize that it isn't your victory. Or, if you're more like Rarity, strive instead to make sure that the student doesn't make the same mistakes that you did. Even then, this is only compatible if the student is attempting to do the same goal that you did while in their position. People acting like the older ponies in this episode rarely realize that they're doing this while they're either caught up in the moment or simply don't know any better. This is why it's extremely important to constantly examine yourself when in any kind of authoritative position, including asking for feedback from both colleagues and charges regularly, and listening earnestly to their feedback. This brings me to the second lesson of the episode, the perspective and responsibility of the student. But unfortunately still, the situation of this episode puts students in a very difficult situation. As a student of any kind, you rely on your mentors to have your best interests at heart, but certain instructions, exercises, or experiments may not always make sense while you're learning them. But in order to learn anything, you have to trust that they know what they're doing. If the mentor's motivations are selfish, the student has a right to rebel. But be careful, because rebelling against a mentor unnecessarily can have serious consequences on top of being very disrespectful to people who are investing a lot of time and love into helping you achieve your potential. If you're worried that your mentor may not have your best interests at heart, all you have to do is ask them any questions necessary to clarify the discrepancy. Just make sure that your mind and heart are open to the answers and explanations, so that your eyes may be opened as well. Any good teacher will be able to put your concerns at ease and be happy that you're seeking to understand things on a higher level, while selfish instructors will only pull rank and get angry without any explanation whatsoever. The Cutie Mark Crusaders had no way of knowing these things while in the situation, so it wasn't until things literally came crashing down around them that they were able to gain the perspective needed to confront their selfish role models. By doing so, they not only learned how to think more clearly for themselves, but were also able to make their sisters realize that they were being selfish so that they could correct their own behavior. As long as we understand where our goals and priorities should lay as both students and teachers alike, then maybe we can do the same. And that's the moral of the story. If you have a topic you would like to hear discussed, you can drop your suggestions by following Brawny Buck on Tumblr or sending an email to bronydebates@gmail.com. Feel free to check out my Patreon to see how you can support my channel and what you'll get in return. This video was sponsored by Irish John's Short Films and Animations, as well as all of my other generous supporters. Have a great day, and I look forward to hearing from all of you soon.